Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Sub250 Nimble65. The flight controller is the Red Fox A1. It has a 5 amp ESC. It does have a built-in receiver and VTX that goes up to 250 milliwatts, as well as the receiver being Express LRS. And the camera is the Caddx Ant, and we have freely adjustable camera angle. Motors are 0702 27,000 kV, and the props are the HQ a DT 31mm tri-bladed props. Also comes with the G&B A30 connection, which is compatible with BT20 as well, like so. Sub250 does sell their own 300 milliamp batteries that are A30 as well. Those are likely made by G&B. And it comes with an extra set of props. Comes with a small Phillips screwdriver as well as a hex driver and oddly enough 2 prop removers, which I don't use. It looks like we also have 4 extra canopy screws. And it comes with 1 sheet of stickers. And this is the box it came in, and this box kind of feels like it belongs on a store shelf, which is unusual for FPV to have this clear plastic so you can see the quad, but it's kind of interesting. It weighs 21.5 grams. With the Sub250 300 milliamp battery, it weighs 29.88 grams. Also spent a lot of my time using these new Aerial Outlaw Boomstick 300 milliamp 1S BT20 batteries, and with that battery, it weighs 29.78 grams. And motor post to motor post, I am getting about 65 millimeters, as we would expect. We're going to start off with the inside flight. You can see the name of the craft across the top of the DVR file there, the Nimble65. In the top right are the goggles I'm using to fly this with, as well as the radio in the top left. Those, of course, are not required, but I include a flight background so that you know equipment that I'm using. Express LRS on my radio is 3.1, the version of the firmware that is. So this isn't going to be one of those super light whoops that we have been seeing here recently with the Mobula 6, with the Air series from Beta FPV, or that new one that I think was just over 15 grams from Newbie Drone. So this is going to be more of that traditional design and weight that we actually flew for quite a while, right around that 20, 21 gram marker. Once you start getting to 23, that's on the pretty heavy side, which we did see. The Emax Tiny Whoop came in, my recollection was closer to 23. I think it's well tuned. I didn't have any problems with how it tuned, although I did have a frame breakage, and I was a little bit surprised by that, but then when I got to taking a closer look at it, I shouldn't have been too surprised. The frame design is very similar to what Newbie Drone has on their new Light AF frame. But the big differentiator is the Light AF frame is just going to be designed around carrying a lot less weight than this one is. So that's something that we'll take a closer look when we get back at the desk. It's repairable. I continued to fly it. I flew it on my, I broke it, excuse me, on the inside flights. And I continued to fly it with the same frame the entire time, because I wanted to see, will it continue to break apart, or is that just a weak spot? Other people that might be reviewing this, is it the same area? So is there a mold defect that the manufacturer has? Yeah, I just figured it was best to just keep using it as long as it was usable, and I didn't think it impacted flight really at all. I didn't see where I had excess prop damage because of it. And of all things, it's kind of the rear whoop protection that broke, but so the benefits to this is, I think some would say we have a slightly better camera in the Caddx Ant. At least it handles light better than some of our of the same time frame sort of super light cameras. So it does have a little bit more weight, and it has that frame around the camera that allows it to have a screw hole, which does give you the ability to adjust the camera angle with the canopy. The canopy doesn't really provide much camera protection at any one angle. I kind of moved it around a little bit to see if there was some angle that the canopy, because the canopy is a new design, would provide the camera lens. And it's close, but it's not quite there. And that is, it's a gripe that or something I mentioned that I don't know if we just come to accept, because our cameras, we want them to be as wide angle as possible so we can see as much as possible when we're in the goggles. So therefore, there's this slippery slope of, do you have camera protection and you decrease the amount that you can see, or do you not have camera protection so you can see as much as possible? But that was the inside flight. Just about 3 minutes of flight there, but I flew a little bit too long. I'd say 5 seconds too long on that particular battery, but it gives you an idea about the life flight time on the battery. Of course, if you fly slower or you take less turns, that flight time will go up. This is our outside flight, 8 mile an hour winds, so very, very calm. I had to actually wait Oh, it was a little over a week, I think, before I could get flight time, or excuse me, flight time, miles per hour on the wind below 10 miles an hour. I would go out and fly it and check, and the winds would be 12 miles an hour, but you could actually feel it because, as you can see, there's not much greenery left anymore this time of year where I'm at. Wintertime is set in, and matter of fact, during the time frame I was waiting, we had some snow as well. But the winds, I already mentioned, that's 8 miles an hour, 47 degrees, so it's a little bit chilly, but not terrible, at least not terrible for us this time of year. Where I live, I'll have winter temperatures that might get to 10 below, and summertime temperatures that might get to 110. But I always do outside flights with these things as well, or I try to, at least when I can find a 2-week period that has at least a day where I can hit the flights. I can't always, just because as we get deeper into winter, it could be really uncomfortable outside for a long time. And then if it's not terrible uncomfortable where I can fly it reasonably well, or something reasonably well, then I just have to wait and, maybe post a review based upon the inside video or flight, as that's all that's really available during poor times of FPV seasons. And you see, as we get behind the house over there, kind of in that chimney area, that the video gets darker. Now I'm presuming a little bit that is the fact that the milliwatts on the VTX isn't what we typically see in an all-in-one board currently, with 250 milliwatts being the limitation. And that could be also a little bit of an artifact of that signal with my rapid fire module that I'm using on the goggles. So take that into consideration when you're looking at it, because every time we get close to that chimney, it gets a little bit darker, and it almost feels like there's a little bit more breakup as well. A second point about this is we've kind of seen prices in our whoops go down. This one I think is fairly competitive. I didn't go through all the pricing as of this moment, but I saw on their page that they're retailing this for around $96. That's US, of course. So not terrible on the pricing. We're not seeing that $120, $130 plus marker that we did for a time at least. And this is Sub250's first true whoop offering, which I think they did a fair, good job. Of course, many of us, especially those like myself that really want performance, we're looking to squeeze every half gram that we can down out of the components and whatnot, so that we can enjoy some extra fast flying, especially inside. But you see there, our flight outside has ended. Battery's in good shape, above 3.5 volts. But the flight time was a little bit shorter than it was inside, at 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and that's about what I got over the cost of all my outside flights. So the breakage I had was right back here, and that came on my very first day of inside flying. If you're not familiar with the channel, I tend to fly all the quads over the course of about a week to 10 days. It kind of depends. This time of year, there's less sunlight, so if it's something I have to fly outside, it's usually just over my lunch break, and I always don't get a lunch break, or from work, that is, or I have to run errands, like maybe stop at the grocery store and get some apples, or go to the pharmacy to pick up some prescriptions for myself or someone else in the household. So this time of year with something like this, it's really handy because I can fly it inside just about whenever I get the opportunity, even when it's dark outside, which we have less daylight this time of year. But yeah, this is where it broke. Broke relatively early on, and I didn't have any breakages anywhere else, which was, I kind of expected the other side to break at some point, but it just didn't. But you can see it's right there at that sharp joint change, and it's right on the outside of the strut. I pulled out some other frames that I wanted to look at, because just in my mind, I wanted to kind of compare. And this does come in other colors, by the way. Although the colors on the webpage are kind of, I don't want to say misrepresented, but they appear a lot different than what the colors that they actually offer look like. Like, I believe this is purple and this is pink, but to me this looks a little bit more peach, and this is a really light pink. Maybe I got those wrong. And then the green appears a lot darker on their website than it actually is. Of course, they don't offer blue, so boo. But anyways, I was getting these frames out just to kind of look at them. One, we can see these now have, and these are the lighter frames. They have more struts around the whoop to help support the structure of the whoop in some particular way. We also see that, especially on the Beta FPV one, they actually curved this out. Kind of got that in the lower part of the frame. They kind of curved this out, and you would think that would create a stress point because of the angle right here, but obviously mine is, and these, I've continued to fly these. This is one of the early prototypes that didn't have the sun protection on the back. I just added that, which isn't really all that effective because it's blue. I think you need black on this one. But as far as the frame goes, I was just kind of looking at it, and then I pulled this one out, which this is the Newbie Drone Race Spec 3.1, better name, but it looks to be identical in the actual structural design. I think this one is probably going to be lighter, but of course it didn't break because, you know, this one is, like I said, a lot lighter. They did some special motor wires to make things lighter. They have a special board to make things lighter. They don't have a big bulky canopy. They have this very lightweight canopy. So this one is really, what, more than 5 grams lighter than this is my recollection. Let me get my scale. We'll just look at that. Okay, to refresh our memory, got 21.5 grams on the Nimble65. And 16 and a little less than a half grams on the Race Spec from Newbie Drone. So yeah, it's at least, I would say, 5 grams lighter, and therefore it's probably a good reason why this one broke and this one didn't. But like I mentioned in the flight, I was curious that maybe it's this particular Whoop frame, like maybe there's something in the mold that needed the change and how it's being poured. I don't know how these things are actually made. You know, I'm not a plastics engineer by any stretch, but because I think Heads over at Infinity Loop broke his at a same point, but I'm just not sure if it's the same motor. You might want to check out Infinity Loop's when his review is posted, if it isn't already, to see if it broke in the identical spot, because that might indicate one thing or another about the breakage. The board is also a little bit thicker than well, visually it looks a little bit thicker. Obviously I didn't take it out and measure it, but that was another thing that I looked at when I was kind of looking at the visual comparisons of these new much lighter quads like this. So we have a much thicker board. You can see we have UFL, and we have the typical micro USB connection and motor plugs. This doesn't have motor plugs. It does have the micro USB, but even the camera connection that they use on here is smaller. Let me see, where is the camera connection? Oh, the camera is soldered on. These are the solder points right down here for the camera. So the wires run back underneath. You can kind of see them through there, and then they connect right here. So if you want to replace the camera, you do have to do some soldering on this particular unit. So that's something else you need to be aware of. I mentioned the camera protection, and I'm not going to necessarily say this is a terrible thing because, again, as I kind of lamented, when it comes to whoops and us squeezing weight, when it comes to our camera protection, we just oftentimes, I mean, look at this. This has only got this little tiny bit of camera protection right up here, and that's TPU on a very flexible mount. This is a firm mount, or it'd be more firm. It's not hard. It's still the same sort of plastic materials the frame is made out of, but you could see that the lens just barely protrudes out. And hopefully these arms, like if you were to hit something dead on here, hopefully these arms that the camera's mounted to would flex before this lens would break. Hopefully. The VTX antenna does mount pretty securely. It does. I didn't have any problems with it really moving around, either sinking down inside the canopy or coming out. This holder seems to work quite well. And then our Express LRS is just a wire. It's soldered onto the board right back here, and it is insulated. Oftentimes, especially with like Happy Model products, like this Mobula 6 Freestyle or Race. It's the Freestyle. It has the Lux camera. And we just have this wire, this copper enameled wire. They went with something that still has the insulation on it. And it is a very flexible, but the length really surprised me. I mean, that's coiled up underneath. Look, as I pull it, look how long that thing is. Again, comparison. Now, I don't fly at range, and that's not legally advisable to be doing, you know, long range stuff beyond visual line of sight. So I'm wondering, I didn't have any telemetry call outs or fail safes or anything of that nature, but the length of that antenna makes me kind of wonder about the Express LRS. Even as good as it is that potentially a range issue? I only say potential because I don't have much long range experience, if any, that I would mention here on the channel. But the length of that antenna, because these antenna lengths and the exposed elements, they all have particular measurements to be able to work ideally, and this seems way too long to me. We'll see. Maybe my counterparts out there can be more definitive. Maybe Chris Rosser and his channel, he has one to review and he can talk about that. Or Mads is another very technical person. I'm just a guy who likes to enjoy the hobby and fly a lot. But they have engineering experience when it comes to these sorts of things that they might be able to help us with. They did use, as you saw in the accessories bag, they did use kind of pan heads with a little bit of a wider head to secure the canopy down. That will certainly help keep things together, because if you were to use a really small screw, which we used to see, but we don't see that much anymore. I mean, even when you look at, it's hard to see because it's black on black. We're starting to see that more and more, because there was a time where that was not commonplace. They would use the smallest screw available. And then we have more screws down here at the bottom to secure our motors. So overall, I thought as far as a flyer goes, you saw the flight. You can judge the flight to be yourself. I didn't see any flight deficiencies that we might be looking for when it comes to quads. I thought it handled pretty well. I thought the flight time was pretty reasonable, almost 3 minutes indoors. I usually crash out at least once under 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but if I get to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that's a pretty successful flight for me. But in this particular case, we got almost 3 minutes of full flight indoor, and then of course we got 238 outside. With our batteries being able to recover. Again, has the A30 connection from G&B, which is BT20 compatible. I have been trying out these boom sticks from Aerial Outlaws, and these do appear to be the same flat cell batteries that we do tend to want when it comes to our Whoops, our 1S batteries. Good power, good performance, good flight time. They do fall off once you get below 3.3 volts relatively quickly, but that's not necessarily uncommon. But I think these are, again, one of those batteries that are sought after, like the Tiny Whoop, like the We Bleed, like the Beta FPV Lava battery, like the Tattoo batteries. I suspect the same company is making all those batteries, and then all of our other companies are putting their labels on it, which, shop around. Whoever's got them cheapest, get them. But these got very similar flight times, but of course I've only got these two. The connector is not really the limiter when it comes to these things anymore. We could put way more through the connector than we actually can offer from the battery itself. So if you have A30 batteries, they'll be fine. They'll work just as well when it comes to BT20. I just think that the performance is just a little bit different. I suspect the Sub250s are made by G&B, and these are made by whatever the same company is. It's making them for all the other companies out there. Really don't have more to add. I do like the colors of the top bell of the motor, if that is something that you enjoy looking at. The little chrome accent there, or kind of a chromish blue. You might call that chromish green. And the clean screen printing on the motors itself, they were attractive. I don't know who's making the motors for them, but a minor thing, but something that caught my eye as I was kind of looking it over after I got done flying. If you are interested in this quad from Sub250, I believe Sub250 would be the only place that currently has it, but if other places start to carry it, I'll try to remember to link it down in the video description. This was sent for review. I did not pay for it, as are most of the products, if not all of them, recently that come on the channel. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Sub250 Nimble65, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.